From the outset of the war, Second World War in 1939, Washington anticipated that the war would end with the United States in a position of overwhelming power. High-level State Department officials and non-governmental foreign policy specialists met regularly through the wartime years. They laid out plans for the post-war world. They delineated what they called a grand area that the U.S. was to dominate. The grand area was to include at least the Western Hemisphere, the entire Far East, and the British Empire, which the U.S. was planning to take over, including the U.S. Middle East energy resources. The British Foreign Office was aware of this. If you look at their documents, not very happy about it, but they said we're going to have to recognize that we're going to be a junior partner, as they called it, in the evolving world order. Well, that was in the early years of the war. As Russian forces started to grind down the Nazi armies after Stalingrad, the conception of the grand area was enlarged to include as much of Eurasia as possible, including certainly the industrial and commercial center, the heartland of Western Europe. Now, within the grand area, I'm now quoting, within the grand area, the U.S. was to maintain unquestioned power with military and economic supremacy while ensuring the limitation of any exercise of sovereignty by states that might interfere with its global designs. That's a live policy right now. I'll come back to crucial instances. One should bear in mind how venerable the doctrine is and how appropriate to the nature of the world that was in fact emerging. You have to remember that when the Second World War ended, the U.S. literally had half the world's wealth, a position of power, of security that was totally unparalleled. Nothing like it in history, and that was understood.
Kal Halal Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakak Wadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharallah. For those of you not too familiar with Noam Chomsky, the gentleman in the opening clip, here's an excerpt from Wikipedia. One of the most cited scholars alive, Chomsky has influenced a broad array of academic fields. He is widely recognized as having helped to spark the cognitive revolution in the human sciences, contributing to the development of a new cognitivistic, say that 5 times fast, framework for the study of language and the mind. Incidentally, the cognitive revolution is in relation to cognitive science. Cognitive from the Latin verb cognoscere, meaning to get to know, to recognize. A compound word, com, meaning together, and nocere, know as in gnosis, meaning to know. Science, of course, from the Latin scientia, simply meaning knowledge, a knowing, and expertness, to know. Cognitive science is defined as the interdisciplinary scientific study of the mind and its processes. Interdisciplinary means relating to more than one branch of knowledge. Language, perception, memory, attention, reasoning, and emotion are the faculties of concern to cognitive scientists. In addition to his continued scholarship, he remains a leading critic of the U.S. foreign policy, neoliberalism, and contemporary state capitalism, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and mainstream news media. Chomsky and his ideas are highly influential in the anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist movements. Noam Chomsky is the child of so-called Jewish immigrants to Philadelphia. The Spirit put it on me to open with Mr. Chomsky because, generally speaking, the leader in all facets of industry, in terms of control, would have to be the chief house of Edom, which is Amalek, the so-called modern-day Jews, be it education in all areas of study, health and medicine, technology, the the economy, business, the judiciary system, entertainment, even the military. The lead house of Esau is at the forefront. Job 9:24, a verse by now you should already know. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? The judges are we, the Hebrew Israelites, the true children of Jacob. He is in reference to Esau. He covered our likeness in the Renaissance era by destroying our historical documents and artifacts with something called iconoclasm, which included whitewashing the true paintings of the saints from the so-called Dark Ages in Europe, called the Dark Ages because we Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, were in rule. After masking our so-called religious images, they went on to, of course, introduce us into slavery, subjugating our people in our land, then sought to take on our identity as his own. And here we are today, a displaced and disenfranchised people. Now, this thing of ours is about truth, first and foremost. No matter the source, no matter the component or vehicle. And secondly, this thing of ours is not about personal bias based on the so-called color of anyone's, or the lack thereof, of anyone's skin. However visibly unlikely, Noam Chomsky, who may very well be a son of Ashkenaz or a wise man from Teman, he himself could be an Israelite. A lot of the true biblical Israelites are in modern day Israel and Palestine today. Really, I gravitated to the idea for this Noam Chomsky lecture as an opening clip because in layman's terms, like our elders before us, Chomsky knows his shit and he tends to buck up against the system. In any event, the topic of this lesson is really about the goal of the New World Order, in which the chief house of Esau has proven instrumental. There are a plethora of goals, of course, but really four that are the basis of Esau's desire, if you will, to place the entire world under his control and rule. Yeah, I got my scholarly hat on in this lesson, so no reason to make it all long and drawn out. What we should do is get some background. Really, the first time in times Esau and the spirit of Esau tried to bring about a new world order. Let's go to Genesis chapter 11, verse 1, and it reads, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt therein. And they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." This is the first concept of a new world order and a one world society. Verse 5, "And the Lord, whose name is Yahweh, came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And Yahweh said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord Yahweh scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city." Verse 9, "Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because Yahweh did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." Now the word Babel or Babal is the Hebrew for the word confuse or confusion. Confusion by mixing, if you will. America is known as modern-day Babylon the Great, the land of confusion. Self-evident because only in America can you do anything to your heart's desire that goes against not only Yahweh's word, but his laws, statutes, and commandments. That in itself is the state of confusion. Mixing, quote-unquote, speaks to America being known for its multiculturalism and the great melting pot that it is, a consolidation of people, observances, and ideas. That too lends to the state of confusion, because how could a country founded on fundamental Christian principles and ideas endorse same-sex marriage, abortion as a form of birth control, feminism, or the exalting of woman over man, which goes against the scriptures and allows you the freedom to practice any religion, including Satanism, which more or less is adverse to the teachings of the Holy Scriptures? The gist of the matter is, Hebrew Israel is a special people unto the Lord, a set-apart people, and the other nations with their different belief systems, practices, and ideas, it was never intended for us to be put together. We were meant to be set apart. 2nd Ezra 6 and 53, the prophet Esdras, or who you might know as Ezra, says this: Upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. As for the other people which also come from Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And now, O Lord, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us, and to devour us. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the Lord? How long shall this endure? The Lord answers, the Lord Yahweh, that is, answers the question of endurance in 2nd Ezra 6 and 7, which is another reason, other than the fact it tells you exactly who Esau is. The Apocrypha was removed from the Holy Bible because it foretells Esau's downfall. Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of times, or when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? This is Ezra speaking to the Most High Power. And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Meaning, when Esau is a nation in decline, and it is made evident to the world over that he is no longer fit to bear rule, the true children of promise, in accordance with the prophecies, which is important, written of in the Bible, starting with the implementation of the microchip, the Third World War, and the return of Yahweh Shai himself, we Israelites would then receive the kingdom. Let's jump to 1 Maccabees 1:41, where the New World Order is revisited in the time of King Antiochus Epiphanes, arguably the wickedest man that ever lived, where Israelites were under the subjection and rule of the Grecians and the Grecian Empire. And bear with me, and it reads, Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. Let me say that again. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Shabbat. Speaking to the Hellenization of Israel, meaning Israelites who were forced and obliged to practice Greek tradition and culture. So without further ado, let's get into the actual goals of the New World Order, in no particular order. Let's start here. One world government. This is Revelation chapter 13, verse 7, and it reads, And it was given unto him to make a war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds, and tongues, and nations, which the simple and plain explanation is to go right back to Job 9 and 24. Let me read this before we move on, because that was just, Self-explanatory. This is Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. So there is no doubt as to who is presently in power. Back in Revelation 13, let's go to verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. And this speaks to the election of Israel, the chosen out of the chosen, who are written in the book of life and were woken up from their deep sleep by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem Rakah Quadash, who is due all honor and praise, and pulled from the worship of this beast. At one time, we all believed in Esau's deception pursuant to Isaiah 60:1. I believe we were given the light, which is the knowledge of this truth, and glory, which is the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of these scriptures. This is why we are able to see the plans Esau has laid out and who the devil on the planet Earth really is. The him is the beast written of in the book of Revelation. The foundation of the world is in reference to the new world, so-called discovered by Cristobal Colon, otherwise known as Christopher Colombo, the conquistadors and his 5 Hebrew interpreters who knew upon arriving in the new world on these western shores, they would encounter a Hebrew-speaking people. The lamb slain is the image of Yahweh Shai, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Being a so-called black man, his true likeness was covered by Esau through Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia from Spain. Through the ruling power and reach of the Catholic Church, he hid our Lord's identity by setting up his own son, Cesare, to be the image propagated to the world as the true image of the Son of God, and later to our own in slavery through plantation Christianity. So anywhere in the world that you see this white Jesus, know that it's not the depiction of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai. It is a depiction of Cesare Borgia. The only reason why Esau is dead set on destroying present day Christianity is because he needs to set up his beast image as the new God, if you will, to be worshipped, which brings us, I guess, to number 2. And as I said before, these 4 points are really in no particular order. Number 2, a one world leader. And for that, let's go to Revelation 13:2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. The leopard speaks to Alexander the Great in his reign pursuant to Daniel, the 7th chapter. The bear is speaking of Russia. Here the feet represent the end of Esau's dominion under NATO and his rulership of America. When Yahweh Shai returns, the kingdom that will be leading the charge against Esau, Edom, is Russia. When Esau in America, which is Babylon the Great, is destroyed, Russia will hold rule until Yahweh Shai spoils all of Esau as a nation and kingdom. Remember, Britain, Spain, Germany, France, America, and Russia itself were all ruled by Esau, Edom. It is Esau that sits in the global power seat present day. And his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and that lion being Great Britain, which America came out of. And the dragon gave him power and his seat and great authority. The dragon represents the system under which Babylon, which is America, rules today. Its power structure erected on the fundamentals of the ancient Roman Republic, the pagan Roman Empire. The dragon and beast in rule is interchangeable with Esau, Edom, otherwise known as the global elite, the men behind the curtain who are initiating this great global reset, and the international bankers. This includes the elites that deal with enchanting spirits and witchcraft, the Chaldeans pursuant to Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, and Daniel 4, I think it's in verse 7. Let's go to number 3, one world religion. Incidentally, these first 3 goals are pretty much already in place. One world religion is not a particular religious practice in place per se. It is a practice being carried out religiously, if you will. The idea of this is also in line with Revelation 13, particularly verse 8. But let's go to Revelation the 17th chapter. Bear with me here. This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. The point is verse 2. We'll start at 1 to prove ultimately this is the will of the Heavenly Father and the power is in the Lord's hands. Ergo, this is the Lord's movie in script. Everybody's just playing their part. And it reads, "And there came one of the 7 angels who do the bidding of the Most High, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee." The thee being John the Revelator, who this revelation was given to on the island of Patmos in his exile by the messengers of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua. "I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." Now, all the earth's rulers, the various governments of the earth, are under the vibration of Esau Edom, mainly here in North America. You see it in their style of dress, trading in their traditional wears for suits and ties, changing their cultural practices to fit in with the beast's imagery, which is the New World Order being spearheaded by America. It is they and the world over, not written of in the book, who are made drunk with the wine, tipsy off what for all intent and purposes we'll call Americanism, meaning they hold reverence for and are willingly engaged in the vain and wicked philosophies of men. The number one wicked philosophy being their brand of liberty called democracy, which doesn't exist. I mean, voting it's an illusion. The illusion of freedom and expression and choice is just that. Another is the practice of these wayward religions, which are really adverse to this truth, ergo Catholicism and plantation Christianity, still being practiced and taught by these 501c3 Negro pork chop preachers who know the truth but don't know it enough to stop them from taking a check to mislead us. Also the spirit of capitalism, which is prominent, especially with Moab, which is China in the scriptures, who is vying for the world's economy #1 spot. Gay rights, women's rights, feminism, etc. All practices identified with being American. And because America is internationally revered and her roads are said to be paved with rubies, baubles, and hand jobs, the other nations chalk it up to just being America, and ergo they overlook its evil for the evil that it really is. The fornication spoken of here is the spiritual adultery that is being practiced, which brings us to number 4. Obviously, it is the institution of a one world currency. This is Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, which if you are down with GMS by now, you should know by heart. And it reads, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads." The he is speaking of the beast system under NATO and Esau, again interchangeable with Esau Edom. We know that MOB, that mark of the beast, to be the implantable RFID microchip, which in itself is another lesson. "And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And we know that to be the UPC code, pretty straightforward. Esau knows his rulership is at an end, so now more than ever, he's pushing these initiatives in the name of science, which really have no scientific foundings or basis, starting with this scamdemic, these quarantines and lockdowns, climate change, and leading the pack has to be this call for quelling the population, if you will, overpopulation, which the idea of it doesn't even exist, as you could place literally everybody that is on the planet Earth in Alaska to live and move about freely. Sirach 12 and 10 says it best. Never trust thine enemy. Never trust this devil. Let's close out with this. This is Job chapter 5, verse 12, and it reads, "He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise." And what is his enterprise? It's on the back of the American dollar bill, the same debt currency that he used to enslave the poor and bring the entire earth under subjection and captivity. Annavi coeptis novus ordo seclorum. Latin, our enterprise is now a success. Our enterprise is now a success. Listen close. A new world order. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. So what is being said here is Yahweh is going to throw a monkey wrench in their whole program and disrupt their rules for a one world control using their own deception. Verse 14, they meet with darkness in the daytime and grope in noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. Meaning the elect of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Indians, and those of you scattered across the globe in the other nations that are inclined to subscribe to and practice and believe in this truth, Yahweh will continue to keep his protective hedge around you. And as long as you remain faithful and grounded in this truth, you can and will be saved. Call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem HaKakwadash through the power of spirit. I hope you were edified. Double honors unto the elders, apostles of Great Millstone who teach us 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom, Yasharala. Remember, no tests, no jab. Damn sure, don't take no chip. Wa Baba Ball. Shalom.
Well, it was always recognized from the beginning that Europe might choose to follow an independent path. NATO was partially intended to counter this threat. And rather strikingly, as soon as the official pretext for NATO, protecting Europe from the Russian hordes, as soon as that dissolved in 1989, reflexively NATO was expanded. If anyone had believed the propaganda, it should have disappeared. Instead, it expanded. One of the interesting things that happened in 1989 is a lot of clouds lifted. You could sort of see policy less concealed by ideology.